Hey everyone, I hope all of you had an amazing weekend and welcome to Kayan Al-Bashar. So today we are building a few more ruins just because it felt a little bit empty having only the Great Ruined Ziggurat. So I also wanted to make a little bit more of a reference to like, oh, this is really inspired or really reference of the actual Great Ziggurat of Ur. And the actual Ziggurat of Ur, from the references that I have seen, was sort of separated from the rest of the city by walls and a gatehouse. So that's basically what I'm building right now. Well, actually I'm building towers. I'm not building an entire gatehouse because that would kind of block the view for the guests to the Great Ziggurat. So I'm just building two ruined towers, a little bit of like a ruined wall, or at least connected to the towers there's a little bit of like a ruined wall. And the rest of the video is building more ruins and more foliage. Also, this is quickly to just answer a question that was raised, I think in the last video or the video before that, but that was basically like, this building looks great, but gameplay wise it might not work. And I can put away those fears and say it actually completely works. Much to my own surprise as well. So the Great Ziggurat I thought wasn't going to be accessible by a lot of animals. So right now this habitat has I think 20 or 30 animals. It still feels really empty, but I'm going more into that later. But every animal so far can use every area of this habitat. So even the okapis can actually go up the ziggurat. I think actually, like, the Great Ziggurat was built for the lemurs, but the okapis have kind of taken over. The lemurs don't really go up there, but at least two okapis have already been born up there in like the what I call the heart of the ziggurat, which is the blue box on top. Already two okapis have been born there. So also the flamingos go up there. I don't know why they go up there and then immediately go down. And they can, well, the okapis can get into that blue box or the heart of the ziggurat. But the flamingos just go up there, don't really do anything, and then run back downstairs, which is fun to see because flamingos running downstairs just looks weird. But yeah, the entire habitat so far is accessible and usable for the animals. And then also like to worry about like how bad of a frame rate monster the ziggurat is. The most noticeable difference is that it has dropped from 60 frames to, well, sometimes 55. Well, this can be because my PC is probably a lot stronger than most of you guys' PC. But so far there hasn't been like a huge hit on like FPS or such things. A little bit of a hit probably more when, well, actually when I unpause it, it does drop to 30, but then that smooths out to 60 again if I like let it play for 5 seconds. So it's just putting it on play mode that does hit the FPS. But that's also probably because maybe the waterfalls, like the water is, well, in Planet Coaster, but the waterfalls were a heavy hitter, if I'm correct, for the FPS. And, well, I've only hit play at the waterfalls, so that might also be a reason. But yeah, back to the towers. So, I might have already mentioned this, but yeah, it has been brought to my attention that every time I say ziggurat, some of you guys hear cigarette. And now I can't unhear that. But I hope you guys understand what I mean. Yeah. My videos are literally just you need a translation guide for whatever I say. But anyway, so for the, well, towers, it was a little bit annoying because I wanted to make them as slopey as the ziggurat. Or ziggurat. Yeah, now I can't unhear cigarette and now I'm trying to improve the pronunciation, but that probably just makes it worse. But back to the tower. So it was a little bit difficult because, well, in the ziggurat it's huge, so whenever there's like a flaw I can hide it. These towers are, compared to the ziggurat, tiny. So having them ruined is a little bit more hard just because I can't hide anything. Everything is on display. But yeah, it's after a while you kind of get used to it. Also, ruined buildings are very piece heavy. Well, I mean, the ziggurat is already 16k pieces. These towers are probably maybe 200, maybe more. Well, each tower is like 200. But yeah, I really like them. I wanted to make them accessible also to the animals, but then I forgot that they are in water. Lemurs can't swim. The okapis are too large to get into those towers, which I already knew, so they were never really built for them. And the flamingos, yeah, don't touch them. They might be able to get into them, but then they have no further use for it because they can't climb. Also, yeah, now I'm really just quickly building a wall because as I said previously, the lemurs can't swim. And the ziggurat is completely surrounded by water. So, yeah, I kind of forgot that the lemurs can't swim. So, I'm quickly building a ruined wall and then some weird little planks and such on top of it. Just so that the lemurs have a bridge to actually get to the ziggurat and go away from the ziggurat. So, yeah, this is where I had to be a little bit creative of like, alright, how do I make this work without it completely destroying like the immersion of this being a ruined habitat. And I don't know how, but what I think every building I've built so far in Plant Coaster and now in Plant Zoo, Assassin's Creed has really inspired me a lot. And this might just be because, well, I call myself a squirrel already, but whenever I build something like this, I just want to climb it myself. I really like climbing things. And building things that are meant to be climbable don't really help with that urge or just not wanting to climb whatever I build. So yeah, I want to climb this. But this is the only way that the lemurs could actually get to the ziggurat. And they really like it. It's also really fun to like, you know, with the after video views of like what we have built so far. I think in almost every one of them, I can see in the background the lemurs just running along it. I think the only place where I don't see that is where I actually make a footage of that part. Then they are suddenly all gone. But now back to a different kind of ruin, which is a Persian ruin. So I originally thought that the ziggurat, or the Great Ziggurat of Ur, was like 3000 years old. Might be correct, I have forgotten the correct date when it was constructed. I think it was, well, no, it was certainly not 3000 years old. But I did find out that it was basically rebuilt in a way, or restored, a few years or like a few generations before the Persians took over. So every ruin that you've seen so far is Sumerian, or at least Sumerian inspired. And then now we are building basically Persian arches, or at least these arches are to be found in, hang on guys, it's going to be a name so you guys know that it's going to be awful, but Persepolis, some name. I think it was like the Persian capital for a long time, or at least it was maybe at some time. And so you will find these arches there, and I just wanted them. I mean, when I looked at them, I just thought like, this is prime lemur real estate. So yeah, these arches were really just for the lemurs, so that I could build like a complete climbing system on top of it. Sadly though, the lemurs, as I said, they like that sort of ruined wall bridge, and they only stick to that place. They don't really use this one, so yeah, the one thing that I really meant to be like the playground for the lemurs, they don't use it. Well, they can use it actually, and well, they just don't, which is sad. Like, I think I only saw one of those red lemurs on top of here, And that's the one thing with these climbing things. Sometimes their climbing animations are just weird. Like they will go through walls and such. But yeah, in the end, I'm still very happy with where and how I built this, because it just frames the ziggurat again. Like, this is always a good thing when you're, well, wanting to make a view. Have something that frames what is the center of that view. So with that I mean, if you like, the ziggurat is in like the center of what you want a view to be, then have like lower buildings or lower things directly next to the ziggurat, and then have higher buildings again next to that, so that it's just like high, low, high. And that the high point is usually the point that you want to be the center of someone's view. So yeah, still sad that the lemurs don't really use this, but yeah, I guess I should have known that they won't use the entire habitat, because the habitat is huge. Yeah, I didn't really think of that when I built the Great Ziggurat, because I just thought like, oh, in time it will be completely populated by all the animals. I forgot that the animals tend to cluster. Like, they usually, like, they move in groups, at least they move in groups here. So it's usually when I find one lemur, I find the rest. And then when I find one okapi, I find the rest of the okapis very quickly, because they just cluster. And they kind of go in, well, schedules. So whenever, let's say, a group of flamingos moves on from, let's say, one place in the habitat, then the okapis will move into the place that the flamingos just left. And then when the okapis leave, sometimes the lemurs go in, or the flamingos come back. And that just goes on and on and on. So yeah, this well, I had a name for it, but just this construction place, well, actually renovation or just reconstruction place, it has a name and I forgot it again because I'm awful with names. But I am going to rebuild this later on, or at least the place where the lemurs could get upside or onto the first arch, because that's just now just a ramshackle, I think 5 beams and some planks. And I wanted to make it look like they are actually rebuilding these ruins, like finally the people of Kayan Al-Bashar are, well, seeing the importance of their history and they are rebuilding it. But what I'm building now doesn't really show that, just because it's, I think I was a little bit tired when I was building this, because it's a little bit, let's just say, not as, I would say, high quality as the other parts of the buildings that I've built so far. So I'm going to rebuild part of this. And here is where there's like a fine line between making something look like it's being reconstructed or rebuilt or renovated, and making something look like it's under construction. So the basic idea behind making something look reconstructed is, well, for this, basically having the plaster outer shell be there, because if you construct something, putting plaster on top of it is the last thing you will do. Like most of the time, at least from what I know, you will probably first build like the raw brick building and then you will plaster it over. I was kind of afraid that like, oh, it would look too much like it's just being under construction. Yeah, in the end, I just thought like, alright, plastering a building is the last thing you're going to do, so it's going to be a little bit more obvious that this is being rebuilt or reconstructed. And then also having like plants and such inside the building, so that it actually looks ruined, kind of saves it. Yeah, this is one point where I quickly wanted to talk about, well, how to tackle the next parts of this habitat, because so far we have done different things, but now we are going into the place where it's going to be kind of repetitive. So for like the next parts of the habitat, it's going to be pretty much the same as I do in today's video. So the ruins are going to look pretty much the same. Well, not completely the same, but I'm going to use the same techniques and such. Foliage is also going to be pretty much the same. So here I just want to ask you guys, do you want to see that? Even though it is going to be repetitive? Or do you guys want me to, for the videos at least, move on to the next habitat or the next part that I'm wanting to build, and then give you guys like updates on this habitat? Because this habitat could go on for I think another week before it's somewhat finished. Yeah, I have plans for what I want to build next, and just to give a little bit of like a teaser of what I plan to build next, let's just say Google Maps has been, for me at least, in Istanbul, Damascus, Cairo, Baghdad, and Jerusalem, and a lot more cities around that area. So that might give you an idea of what I plan to build next. But yeah, do you guys want to see me first complete this entire habitat, or do you guys rather want to see me move on and give you like updates in like the end video views that I now hopefully will put in every video? I might forget it once. So yeah, that's basically just, do you guys want to see the entire habitat, or do you guys want to see me move on? But anyway, enough of that. So yeah, with the foliage, I go insane because I found out that like, oh, the elephant grass and the candelabra trees really work well together. I'm never probably going to use the candelabra trees for the actual tree purpose. They're now just going to be tall grass for me. So that's basically also, I think, what saved this habitat a little bit, because I didn't want to make a complete jungle out of this habitat. I mean, when I talk about jungle, I mean like the, well, oasis from the floating caravanserai, because that is pretty much a jungle. And I didn't want to do that with this habitat just because it's already gigantic, so it's going to be hard to find the animals. But then to also make this into a complete jungle, first of all, we'll probably hide a lot of like the lower ruins. Like the ziggurat you will probably see fine. I mean, I think you can see that fine from the entrance of the zoo. But the rest of the ruins would otherwise be completely unseen. Oh yeah, here's where you can see the animals clustering together. I think this is where I only had 2 flamingos. But later on they just, well, they clustered in this area. Even with, let's say, their newborns and such. Because, well, the flamingos aren't the heaviest breeders actually in Kayan Al-Bashar so far. That has been sort of the okapis. Well, the okapis are constantly pregnant, but they also, well, it takes a year before they actually give birth. But they have been constantly pregnant. But yeah, the animals just cluster together. I wanted to get the shot of like all the flamingos in that corner that we've just built. But yeah, I wasn't finished with the entire habitat yet. Or the entire habitat, I mean the part that I'm building for today's video. Because again, the entire habitat is probably going to take another week. But what was I talking about again? I don't know, so let's just move on to what I think is the stereotypical ruin. Like whenever I think of a ruin, I just think of this, basically. This corner wall with 2 windows. One window is completely there still, or at least window framing and such is still there. And then one window just doesn't have the top part anymore. And then the corner is a really high, while the wall still remains very high there. And then there's a little bit of like the first story that is still a little bit intact. But yeah, this is for me the stereotypical ruin. I think, yeah, if you look at the flamingos, I think this is the first time that one of them got pregnant. So yeah, I captured that moment for some reason. For some reason, I just started building and that happened. But yeah, so back to the ruin. This is where I had a little bit of trouble because, well, with the Great Ziggurat, with the towers and the Persian ruins, those are higher class ruins, which sounds a little bit strange, but hear me out. With higher class ruins, I mean like official buildings and those usually have like thicker walls. But this is a residential ruin or a lower class ruin, so I thought like, alright, these are going to have thinner walls. But how am I going to make that work? Because a lot of the pieces in Planet Zoo are really meant to build large buildings. The same went with Planet Coaster. So in the end I just decided to continue with my old way of building ruins, which is basically just having an outer shell and then having the inner shell be just raw, uncoated bricks. So I might change that on later on, but for this ruin it still works. And yeah, for me this is really just a stereotypical ruin. Yeah, also, again, I just want to climb all these ruins for some reason. Like, I think this is just the effect of playing Assassin's Creed games. It's just like, I easily pick out like, oh, if I jump on there, climb up there and do that, then I'm on top of that ruin. I think I should play a little bit less Assassin's Creed. I actually want to pick up Assassin's Creed Revelations again, just because I love how Istanbul looks in the game. I don't know if it's like accurate, because I mean, the Assassin's Creed games are well, let's just say not completely accurate. But I mean, for me they always get like the perfect vibe of like places. Well, maybe not perfect vibe as in accurate vibe, but the vibe that they built in, well, Istanbul, but I think it's still in Assassin's Creed Revelations called Constantinople. I just really like the vibe. And this might be controversial, but I like Assassin's Creed Revelations a lot more than, well, Black Flag. Yeah, I think that's not an opinion shared by a lot of people, because I think Black Flag was like kind of one of the best, especially after Assassin's Creed 3, but yeah, I just like the vibe of Constantinople more than the Caribbean. Not to say that Black Flag was bad, but yeah, I just didn't like it as much as the vibe of Constantinople and Rome and Venezia and Florence or Firenze. I don't know why I went from building ruins to Assassin's Creed, but yeah, let's just go full into that. And who of you guys actually also play Assassin's Creed? And what was your favorite game? I mean, for me it was just the entire Ezio saga that was like the favorite part. I can't really decide on which one of those three is my absolute favorite. Though building or setting wise, it is probably Revelations. Yeah, I really love Constantinople or Istanbul. Or I am, however, wondering if I can use that as like a reference to build what I plan on building. Again, that can be a week from now that I start building that, which might drive me nuts, because whenever I have plans to build something, I just need to get it out of my system, otherwise I will go insane. Or this might be in the next video if you guys, well, yeah, I'm just going to leave that to you guys. Do you want to see the rest of the habitat being built? Or do you just want to see updates if it's not as, well, new as what we built today? So yeah, let's just get back into the habitat, and I need to probably not stop talking about Assassin's Creed. Anyway, so as I said, the original or real, or yeah, the real Ziggurat of Ur, the real Ziggurat of Ur. I probably pronounced that 10 different ways this entire video, but well, let's just move on. But that ziggurat was enclosed by walls and separated from the rest of the city. It was, from what I know, in the center of the city, just like this ziggurat is sort of, or at least is going to be. But it was enclosed or just sheltered from the rest of the city by walls. And as I said, I didn't want to build entire walls, because then a lot of the habitat would just not be visible to any outsiders. So I just built ruined walls, because it gives you the idea of like, oh, there were huge walls surrounding this. but it doesn't enclose it as much. So yeah, that's basically just the idea that went behind this. There's not really much realism to these walls because yeah, if you have these walls or rebuild them, they would go into the Persian ruins. Although the Persian ruins are from a later date, so that might work if the Persians just left these ruins there. But then I don't think they would. I think they would probably destroy these ruins just because, well, if you want to build a palace, you probably are going to be mindful of the view you're going to have. Ruins don't usually make a view better, or at least real life ruins. Anyway, so for the second or the other part of the walls, as you could see, I basically copied the other wall and do a slight little bit of a change to it by making a little bit more of the wall sort of, well, sort of in pristine condition. But yeah, now let's move on to, I think, what I enjoyed most of building, which is of course all the foliage, or the foliage. So yeah, this quickly just brings me to, you guys clocked me, well, maybe mispronouncing or just missaying ziggurat for cigarette. I think if you go back, you will see or hear me a lot of times say foliage or foliage instead of foliage. Well, now I can't say it wrong anymore now that I think about it, or now that's in my mind. But I used to say foliage instead of foliage. You guys didn't clock that one, so I kinda got away with that. But yeah, from now on I will try at least to say foliage correctly instead of foliage. But yeah, it's going to be a lot of these plants, a lot of those elephant grass and the candelabra trees, because they just look great together, and I couldn't use a lot more long grass, although I also don't like using the long grass because, I don't know, it just doesn't look as vibrant as I want it to be. This is also again the case why I kinda don't like the brown tint that the bugged save file has, just again because all the colors were just washed out. I really like Kayan Al-Bashar as vibrant as it is now. Also quick to say, yes, I did try to place one of those pink trees, but I am going to name an okapi after you. So you can see that in both ways. Either it's, well, a very good thing because then you will actually be represented in the zoo. Otherwise it's the most evil thing to do because then you are just stuck with all those pink trees. Those pink trees that you hate so much. So yeah, let's just think about it in the positive way. I'm going to probably place a lot more of those pink trees, so I'm just using this as like almond trees. But yeah, anyway, that's going to be it. So yeah, Dark, you are stuck with the pink trees. Hope you're happy. Anyway, but yeah, that's going to be it. I hope you enjoyed the video. Please do let me know if you want to see more of the habitat or want to see me move on to whatever I'm planning to build next, which is probably going to be near the Great Ziggurat, or Ziggurat. Now I just can't unhear cigarettes. But anyway, so again, going to be it. I hope all of you have enjoyed the video. If you do, don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button. And I hope all of you have an amazing start of your week. Bye bye!